Episode 371. We're going to go through some reviews a little later in the show for Shazam Fury of the Gods and also a new Hulu original movie called Rye Lane. But to start the show, as always, we're going with the required viewing. This week's pick was a movie that I selected last week. Came out this year, actually. Another recent movie, much like Ronald's pick. This one was called Palm Trees and Power Lines. And this was a film most people would probably only recognize maybe Jonathan Tucker in it, but a relatively
Mall.
new. What's that?
Gretchen Mol.
Oh, Gretchen Mol. Right, she's got a couple scenes. Yeah. True. But yeah, this is a movie that I had heard about last year at Sundance or through Sundance. I think the co-writer director of the movie won some sort of award, maybe a first-time filmmaker or a feature debut type of an award, and I had just seen Jonathan Tucker posting a bunch about it over the months past, but it finally came out on a video on demand platform a few weeks back. So that was my pick this week. And I don't think either of you had heard of the movie prior, right? Or had it hit either of your radars? Okay. Yeah, it's a really, really tiny movie. And again, I think through Jonathan Tucker, maybe one critic that I follow had been kind of keeping it alive, I guess, until it got a release. But what did you guys think of, or I guess John, you can start. What did you think of Palm Trees and Power Lines?
What a fun little romp.
Yeah, I mean, like if you wanted to be happy and just make your week the brightest it could be, throw this movie on.
I mean, it's kind of an insanely well acted and conceived and shot. I mean, it's like, I don't know, I thought it was really beautifully done and really artfully done, and therefore when it goes for what it's going for, it really makes you uncomfortable and then takes you to a different place than I mean, I can't think of a movie that's quite made me feel this way before. It's a bit of I saw the description said that this Jonathan Tucker plays like an older man who's kind of wooing a teen girl that he meets, and that's like the setup. And it said in the description, and his intentions may not be what they seem. And then as the movie went along, I was like, well, it seems to me that his intentions are exactly what they seem to me. Yeah. But then the movie actually does have another narrative place that it goes to that's a little bit more like, if you're waiting to see if it gets more heightened, it never loses that super grounded, very believable tone that makes you feel so uncomfortable, because it feels so plausible that this could be how some girls are groomed into a situation that is really bad, you know?
Yeah.
It's totally believable that this could happen. But it also does feel like the movie is telling you there is this other layer coming that puts it in that kind of like pays off these feelings you have that this is creepier than just what it seems like, which is already creepy. I mean, there's like nothing right about this.
For sure.
I didn't know what order we were going to talk about these movies in, but I'll just say that, like, if Rye Lane is a movie where you spend the whole movie like really wanting these people to kiss, then this is a movie where the people are kissing and you really wish they were.
She would just run away.
And it has to do, the power of that has to do with how good Jonathan Tucker is at like playing just the right amount of charm, kind of mixed with the menace, that you can see how someone who's kind of trying to make decisions for herself and doesn't want her story or her fate to be dictated by anyone in her life. You can kind of see how she's ripe for the picking for this manipulator. And I mean, their scenes together where they almost seem like they're striking up a rapport. It's like, I kept thinking, is there any way this situation isn't as creepy as I think it is? And then very quickly it escalates to the place where, this man is definitely, it's a sexual thing for him. And then it goes deeper than that. So I don't know. I mean, I thought it was super uncomfortable, and right up to the last moment, it gives your heart another squeeze right at the end of like, fuck.
I know.
Again, if this is a realistic situation, to picture how people get stuck in a really bad toxic relationship with somebody who's just victimizing them. I thought it was a really, I don't know the actress, the young actress's name, but I thought she was amazingly credible as someone who's like, pretty realistically intelligent for a 17-year-old, but definitely not worldly enough to see a few of the red flags that she should be seeing.
Right.
I don't know. What did you think, Ronald?
I was thinking about, I actually wound up watching it a couple hours ago, and it had me thinking about, well, one thing I want to say before just the subject is really rough. And sometimes I think that there's this depiction of those relationships where it almost seems like the younger person doesn't have any agency in the situation. And I think that this does a really good job of showing you what it is. It's not that people that are her age don't know. It's just more nuanced. This more experience gives you the understanding. It's like we all can they all can they can have sex, right? But like the consequences and the age gaps and stuff that you really start as you get older start to be like, ugh, that's weird. Ugh.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right,
Whereas when you're younger, you don't think about them as taboos quite like you do.
Most
'Cause
people when they're 17 don't think of themselves as a kid. You know?
right.
I think that's what it
Yeah,
is. And when
that's
you
what
get
it
older,
is.
you
They
can
s-
totally see that that's a kid. And that's why it's like he's wrong every step of the way, is because it's
sure.
like whatever their rapport could be, whatever friendship they could strike up, this brotherly, sisterly, whatever that could be kind of charming, it's completely decimated by the fact that his intentions are he knows he's overstepping a boundary from the second he like interacts with her.
100%. 100%.
So it's like, but to your point, like she definitely feels like she's making a conscious choice, like to seek out this kind of different thing, and she thinks he's more mature than the guy. I mean, the scene where she's hanging
did
out
a
with a guy
woman
who's
do
her
this
age.
movie? Did a woman
Yes,
direct? Okay,
I
so
believe it was directed
I-
by a woman, and I think it was
Okay.
co-written by two women.
This is why I say that. There's an agency in it that I could tell when men write stuff because it's like it's a wolf, but the wolf is a lot more like there's steps to the, you know what I mean? Like if it were real life, the three little pigs, the wolf would have taken his time. And there's something about the way that this guy takes his time and kind of meticulously kind of pokes at it. Because if he came with the energy that he had at the end, surely, she would not
would run.
ever, that's the agency. She understands that that's a predatory thing. But the way
Right.
that he does it is so fucking, he kind of plays to her insecurities, plays to her like wanting to feel needed, wanting to feel loved, feeling super special. And then there's something special about an older person kind of being like having an admiration for somebody. But the way that he takes is just so gross. And, that's how I could tell
Yeah, I think-
woman wrote it. I didn't even look it up. I was like, a woman wrote this. It's so,
I'm pretty sure
so-
Jamie Dack is the name. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, it's a woman.
It's a woman.
Yeah, I think that's like one of the biggest takeaways for the movie is that like the way I think Jonathan Tucker's performance and the actress is Lily McInerney,
Okay.
who plays the lead. I think the way that
Leah.
he, John mentioned grooming, and I think that's really kind of like
Oh, for
what this
sure.
whole, the real arc of the movie and kind of like how uncomfortable it gets and like genuinely moments like where your skin crawls. It feels like it's that there's a couple scenes in this movie where I was like so uncomfortable that it's like it's almost like unwatchable.
Yes.
But
for sure.
I think that's that nuance in both hers and especially Jonathan Tucker's performance is that like I think he's identifying certain. Well, I don't want to say a type of young girl, but I think just the town that they're from or like this town itself,
Yeah.
it just seems that, there is like a lack of, or what's the word? There's almost like a lack of perspective among her peers. And like he is bringing the perspective that she seems to be looking for.
Right.
Yeah.
And immediately, like John mentioned, like their first meeting, he like kind of immediately like plays that hand, which is like
Yeah.
more of like a protection that she really doesn't have, like either from her mother, really from her friends, like a loyalty from her friends. Like, she in the movie, you see her friends like not keep secrets and like really show a lack of loyalty, like her best friend bringing another person around who she knows that she doesn't want to be around.
Yeah.
And there's all these like little nuanced things where there's almost like a counterpoint that you see her with him and he's like playing completely against it. And you can just
true.
see him like racking up the points in her mind
Yes.
and her going deeper and deeper into a commitment to him because like I think she is, that character is so lacking. And he just somehow, he's a predator and he knows how to do this. And it's like even with signs from people around them, around her, like the woman at the diner and like, even just her
that
friends.
scene was great. That's with the woman at the diner. That was such a great
Yeah,
scene.
like mentioning his age and just like, just common questions, I think. I just, yeah, I mean, it's a really tough movie to watch, I think. And honestly, like, even where the movie ends, like that final like 5 minutes is just like so sad. And
Yeah.
you think there's a, I don't know, I don't want to really spoil the movie. Like we're kind of avoiding it, and I'd like us not to, but I think that, um
Like it shatters any sense you have of like safety for this person because she now has this guy in her life. So it's like
right. And it seems like even though you think
like the
for a
damage is
moment that
done.
she thinks, you think that for a moment she has the strength that it takes from a circumstance that she unfortunately goes through. There's a moment with like her friend again, and just in solitude and just isolation, these moments alone, which you see a lot of it in the earlier part of the movie, that you can just tell like she starts to go through it in her mind, where it's like she's not out of this, like
Yeah.
Yeah.
she's still on the hook. And that's really what's really sad, because it just seems like, you know uh she makes a comment that, like, why didn't you call me, or why didn't you come
Yeah.
looking for me?
Yeah.
That stuff is fucking devastating, because like
It
that's
is.
just that need, that's that lack of, perspective, that lack of attention, that connection that she just doesn't have genuinely. And it's really, really scary and sad that, like, that character, a predator, would provide that to a young girl like this. And the movie does not end on a positive note, I'll just say that, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think it's a really, really well written and made film. It's hard to watch, I think. And this is a movie that had a lot of buzz out of Sundance, and I had read a lot about it in this last week, like some interviews with the production and the filmmakers, and like it seemed like a movie that like there was that buzz around, but like nobody really wanted to try to market and put this movie out because of what it's about.
Right.
And I mean, totally understandable. This is not a movie that I see, marketing around, or really any kind of commercial
I mean, it's disturbing. It's like if
success
we say
around.
movies are
Yeah.
disturbing, this movie is actually disturbing, and it's in a very real world way.
Yeah.
And it does, yeah, it leaves you with the messiness of the real world situation at the end, as opposed to the sort of like I think another thing, Connor Ronald, to what you were saying about if men had written this, I feel like the movie would have romanticized the sort of quote unquote innocence of the young girl more,
Yes,
and it would have been
man.
more of like some sort of savior narrative or some sort of escape
100%.
narrative.
Yeah.
But it's almost like because women wrote it, they're willing to be honest and say that for this young girl, there's no escape from the culture
Yeah.
of well, rape culture. You know what I mean? There's no
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's no
Yeah.
easy escape.
Yeah.
For her literally, but if you look at it as like making any, I mean, I don't know how much I'm sure they, you never know if writers think they're dealing with metaphors at all, but the way this makes you think about the overall picture, you said, Steve, this is kind of like the grooming movie.
Yeah.
This really does make a lot of things. It kind of reminds me of women talking in a different way. Of just, it gets at a lot of issues that
Yeah.
are on our minds these days. And that I'm sure as fathers of daughters, they're on your minds. But I mean, it's like for any of us who's awake in the American culture today,
Yeah.
there's all these thoughts about just the world that specifically, young people, but specifically young women are being introduced into, and how
100%.
it's not on them to have to make all those right decisions when they're 17. That's why the whole thing about how squeamish you feel about the Jonathan Tucker character in this is
Yeah.
just watching him have no shame in the way that he does those things, Stephen. You're right. It's almost like a point for point thing of like, he makes her feel a certain way about talking to him and how he understands, and he's this cool guy. And then her friends do the exact opposite behavior that will
Yeah.
make her feel. So it's like they're helping him. I mean,
Yes.
I'm not putting it on the friends. It's
Oh,
very
yeah, yeah,
realistic
yeah.
teen
Yeah, you're
behavior,
right.
actually. But like, it does make you feel like, oh, this is the nefariousness of what he's doing, is that like he's managed to make her normal life seem that much more alienating. Nothing
Yeah.
like more than that guy that she did like before, and then she doesn't, and he comes up to her at the party, and he's being pretty aggro, and it's pretty gross the way he's acting about it. But you can tell that like maybe normally when the guy comes up and starts kissing on her, she's reciprocal, or that
Yeah.
like, that's what he's expecting. But that like whatever crush she had or whatever interest she had in that is gone, because she thinks she's got this like, and the fact that she instantly starts keeping it secret shows you that she knows.
It's
She
bad.
knows, like you
Yeah.
said, Ronald, that like she's aware. She's not some kid who doesn't understand what's going on
Yeah.
here.
And
And
that's
even the way when he says, "How old are you?" and she says 17, and he kind of cocks his head and goes like, "Oh shit!" Like missed it
Yeah.
by one. It's like the way he acts, and it's like that lets you know his intentions so clearly in that moment, so early, that
Yeah.
he's like, what he's interested in is the fact that she's vulnerable, and that's
Yeah.
gross and evil.
That's kind of what I meant by the agency. It's like creating this false sense that she can move around in the space with this freedom, and
Yeah.
she's with an adult, and this like it's weird, man. The way he started to consume her world, and these threats that like seemed like jokes but really weren't at all. Just heavy stuff. I
Well,
will
it's like if
never.
a 17-year-old says to another 17-year-old, I'm going to be with you forever and I'm never going to leave you and you're never going to leave me. It might sound intense, but it could sound like lovelorn romantic stuff.
Yeah.
If a 34-year-old man says that to a 17-year-old girl, it sounds creepy as hell. Like Nikki was sitting here, I was watching it with my wife, and she was like, God, the stuff that he's saying is just so like you hear it said so often in a romantic sense, but it's like it sounds so creepy and evil in this context because of the way that he's doing exactly what you're saying, Ronald, the way he's using like sort of her exactly that sense you have at that age that you're making decisions for yourself. And this whole thing of like, well, my mom's not here for me. My friends don't really get me, fuck them. I'm not being manipulated. I mean, again, I remember I was never in that situation, thank God, but I can remember several times looking back that I was, I did not know what was going on. And I thought I did when I was 16, 17, running around in the world. So.
Yeah. All right. Well,
so yeah,
Palm
really
Tree,
good movie.
Yeah,
but
tough watch.
Hopefully
tough
we've
watch.
we've sold how much it is a tough watch, right?
And I, honestly, I think it's more of just a conversation around consistently like how great Jonathan Tucker is, and what's to come from this filmmaker co-writer, because again, she won like kind of like a first time award at Sundance last year for this film. So we'll have to kind of keep an eye and see what's up next and what's coming from her.
As a father of a 15-year-old, I want to tell you that the opening scenes between Gretchen Mol and the daughter were overly realistic. It's just how needlessly mean and dismissive the 15-year-old can be of their parent, who's just basically being like, "What would you like on your sandwich, kiddo?" Like you're being nothing but like goofy, and you're even kind of play acting a little bit like, "Hey, I'll be nice," and you're still getting like, ugh. That scene, like almost word for word, the whole like miscommunication and not answering, and I don't want to talk about it, all that stuff. I was like, that was a very realistic portrayal of what a sullen teen experience can be like. And I think Gretchen Mol is like subtle in this too. I mean, she's one of those actors who's aged now into this kind of, she plays moms now. But I thought she was pretty solid in the sense of like, she's not the most engaged mom, but it's almost like it's just the single mom we've seen in a lot of movies where it's like she's got her own thing going on. She's trying to date. Maybe she's not as plugged in as she could be, but she definitely seems like she's trying to be as respectful as she can of her daughter's like needs. But there clearly are days at a time where the daughter's just unaccounted for, and that makes the mom seem a little absent maybe in those situations. I don't know how much we're supposed to be judging her or not, but like she believes that she's out with this one friend a lot. And I had a friend like that who I could say I was at their house and then go somewhere else, and my parents would believe that I had been there. But if they ever called to check on me, then that was that,
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I've ever told a lie, Ronald. Not here on the air.
Damn. That's what. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, man. Go ahead if you want to. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, like, when I was 17, I'd like almost die, and then I'd come in the house like. My mom would be like, "Hey, what happened today? How was your day?" And I'm just like, "Oh, it was good." Just like that crazy, not knowing who the fuck you were or what the hell was going on around you. Strange. What's the next pick? Who's up?